did you have a question?
Well, I had a topic I'd like to include. Am I interrupting?
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Just
okay.
one topic.
A number of abductees have, and most all of the researchers have concluded of this massive interbreeding project that's ongoing.
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's genuine?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be direct.
This topic which you are bringing up is very significant and under-addressed. Because this planet is situated on the outskirts of the universe, then it is a kind of outback. And so, because of its status, it is a young planet with a young race. And young evolution. And so, older planets, more centralized, you know, now they are discovering so many stars have planets. They are so surprised that there are planets around stars and that there are many living planets. How unusual. So it is actually a very, very common situation. And as I was saying last night, the living solar system is in itself a type of entitative existence in which there is evolution. And so it is natural that in such a myriad of existence, there will be so many species evolving to higher forms of intelligence. And naturally, with this, they will evolve technologies. Where there is confusion, the most confusion in the interests of those on this planet who have interest in the stars and the people and the beings from elsewhere. Where there is confusion is between those who live in this dimension and those who do not live in this dimension. That is where confusion occurs. Because there are those beings like yourself who live, there are, according to the yogas, 7 lokas. Lokas mean worlds. There are stratums or worlds. And the time-space causality continuum alters depending upon the dimension or loka in which entities exist. In this Bhuvar Loka, meaning the physical world, earth element is most dominant. And so there are many physical entities of different levels of evolution and intelligence. But there are also entities in the next stratum, the Svarloka, which is the type of astral world, you would say, a subtle world. And on this planet there are also entities who exist in this realm. And so there are many stories of elves and fairies and tree spirits and so on, nature spirits, because there are entitative flows in that realm. In some evolutionary flows, once evolution reaches a certain stage, then it moves out of the physical realm into a subtler realm. And so the entities continue their evolution in a non-physical environment. And there are those who have developed technologies, approaches, which can move from the physical to the non-physical and back to the physical, so that they have the capacity to not only warp space in the sense of folding space, but they can actually move between realms and have developed those abilities. So it becomes a little confusion, and some of the experiences that people have are difficult to understand because of this dimensional shifting. But there is within those more developed races that have evolved space travel, a certain association. And within this association, there are guidelines. This is a young seeded planet. It has no thought is young, just beginning to discover there is a whole universe out there. And there is a fear, naturally, of the unknown. And the feeling of being not as empowered, knowing you are just a small outlying backwash to a vast universe rather than the center of everything. So there's a little adjustment. But when a planet is cultivated, and many planets are cultivated, there must be attendance to that cultivation, because things can go very wrong. When a species is evolving, the evolution of the species can become imbalanced, as is happening currently with human beings, that technologies outweigh the capacity to regulate those technologies properly. The population outgrows itself. So many problems are there that can lead to are leading to a destructive course. Naturally, this arises some concern on those who have been tending this planet. And they want to, while allowing independent development, avert certain catastrophes. So there is some intervention. And there has been some contact, as you know. And it is held very secretively. Human beings stand on the brink of an evolutionary jump to a greater, more expansive development. The awakening, as I have said last night, of subtle layers of the mind, the development of subtle capacities. Human beings have every potentiality, but there is imbalance in this development because as a species there is a confusion between individual survival and collective survival. When evolution occurs upon a planet, first it is the evolving from the whole of the planet of the individual species, but then those species begin to meld together. Psychic communication becomes greater, first by technology, crude outer technology. Then the technology, becoming more sophisticated, becomes more subtle and psychic. And first there are computers to hold the information, but then the beings begin to interweave their collective mental power. And there is an evolution that occurs where there is greater and greater development. There are still individuals, if you will, but they are a part of a collective mind. The collective strength grows in magnitude. Human beings stand on an evolutionary jump between a strong, primitive sense of individuality and this collective linking, which then becomes stronger. And the technology is more subtle, and the problems of today become irrelevant. They are simply due to the youth of the species, the developmental stage of this planetary and solar entity. So there are those who, wanting to assist, who are designated to assist. Some people have had some negative experiences, feeling there is intrusion. And there are different approaches. It may be so that some are less respectful of the independent evolution. But in terms of genetic program, which someone has mentioned, there has always been a genetic program. This is nothing new. There has been a seeding of this planet. And the genetic development, the evolutionary development of the species is going on. There is a gentleman here. You have asked one question. Can you ask it again?
The question was that so many abductees report this massive interbreeding project that is using humans and aliens of a gray form combined to create a human-alien hybrid. And some researchers have concluded that this is for the purpose of infiltrating our society and taking it over.
There are many movies to this effect. It is in the collective mind of people, this fear. And perhaps there is some cause for it. But I would say there is well-regulated protection. And those who have misguidedly interfered will suffer the consequences. And do not have authority or right. And their interventions will not be allowed. So you need not worry. This is a collective mass fear at this stage. Because of what is happening in the evolution of the planet. But there is a regulation. The species of this planet stand at a critical juncture. Of potential self-destruction. This will not be allowed. But independent development must also be respected.
Who is it that ultimately regulates these things?
There is a hierarchy. It is primarily non-corporal. Governing the evolution of the universe. From subtler dimensions of existence. there are those in the more developed stages of evolution whom listen to this counsel and guidance. And from that there is the development of a guiding force. And association of spacefaring entities.
Babaji,
Critical juncture of evolution at this time in this place. Certain interventions are necessary, but not this type you are describing. Yes.
one question, then again he actually has to go back.
Sure. What, with this in mind, what do you see as the cards playing out, so to speak, the events that would lead towards disclosure of technologies like Chris is working on, on free energy? Is this something that is not just an Earth-based form of politics, but something that's exopolitical?
Yes. Certain technologies need to be released at the right time. Otherwise, their destructive potentialities are very great. You see, you give a child the potential to manipulate the material universe, but the child doesn't know what to do, so it explodes it all. You don't give such power to one who does not know how to handle it. There needs to be a collective development, and it will occur. It is occurring. It is occurring quickly. Evolution is quick at this point, very quick. There is a shift occurring. And contact with those who are not from this planet has already occurred, is occurring, will become more public, but public fear is a very powerful force and must be carefully worked with. So many movies are coming out. Why? They are all regarding these hostile takeovers. Why? Why is this happening? Something is triggered within the human psyche, is not some primal fear. If there is too much contact, it can be dissuade a young race from its own development. Simply trying to rely on those that know more and absorb their technology. The race will not form the cohesion it must form to create its own collective.
Our life is you have to do science very bad because
So I must go, but I will be happy to talk again to you, perhaps a little longer on this topic and on some related topics regarding space. All right?
All right.
We could see it from a compass.
But I will tell you something else that's happening, which may be what he's really referring to, is the in part of our GEMI group, John Mack group is a geophysicist at Harvard named what's his name?
Oh, we just talked.
Yeah, we just talked about it. Rudy Shield.
Shields, that's it.
Rudy Shield. And he worked with John Mack quite a bit. And so he was telling me just a month ago, he was saying he talks to the geophysicists at Harvard, and he said the big buzz right now in the geophysics department is that very strong magnetic anomalies are showing up around Korea and off the coast of Argentina, exactly where Baba said the poles are going to go to. And they don't understand why. They don't understand it at all. It's just very strong, very anomalous, and it's happening right now, and nobody's even written any papers about it. They're just right now detecting it.
One of the things, when you think of a period of chaos, just Superstorm Sandy and the nuclear reactors that nearly went rogue, and we've got 450 on the planet, and during a day of chaos, is the planet done at that level of nuclear catastrophe?
Hopefully somebody will bury the nuclear plants in it.
That's always
Or these beings who have the technology to clean it up will do it really quickly. Baba talked about using in the future, microvita science will be able to clean up radiation very quickly.
That's from my experience in anti-nuclear activism in the East Coast and New Hampshire, the Clamshell Alliance, is just to know the corruption within that industry, especially in these later years, to get through.
Just look at how little news is coming out of
It's very
Fukushima.
scary.
It's very
None.
Yeah.
They're not abiding by their own safety regulations.
Yeah, and the West Coast we don't have to worry in the East Coast. The West Coast gets it first.
It's true.
Fukushima's gotten a lot worse lately.
Yeah, they've been dumping how much radioactive water every day?
Right into the ocean.
Right into the
Have you
ocean.
seen pictures of the tank farm at Fukushima?
No.
It's the most incredible thing I ever saw. They have tanks that are the equivalent of 38 Olympic swimming pools worth each tank. And they just go tank, 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 tank.
Are they
And
full now? So dumping
They
it
were originally storing the water in underground tanks, and those are all leaking, and the water is in the water table pushing up into the control rooms and the.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it's serious. But the picture I saw of the tank farms, and realizing the volume in each tank, I was like, and
How much are they doing every day? I mean, have they filled up all the tanks?
If they're dumping into the ocean, it's
apparently it's just
That's
kind
what
of
I
they're dumping the water now. There's so much leakage
Yeah.
that it's overwhelming anybody's capacity to deal with.
In the meantime, San Onofre it will be closing if it's not already.
I think it is close.
Yeah, I actually was living in San Luis Obispo, California. There are two groups. They have an excellent lawyer now, and they're working on shutting down Diablo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is it true? Isn't there a pole shift every 10,000 years or so anyway?
Magnetic pole shift, but not a geophysical pole shift.
So this we're apparently going to have both.
Yeah,
this time.
both. Yeah. We asked Bob about it, and he said it's happened twice before, and this is the third time. I think, something like that.
There's a question for you a little while ago. We got off on some of the different topics. Is there any indication that you've seen or heard of that this latest segment, at least in recorded history, that goes back several thousand years, is a segment in longer history where we are a repopulating of or a significant gene altering segment in so-called human species, Homo sapiens, populating of the universe. Are we this latest phase, and why do we not hear about things that go back more than, say, what is it? Recordable history is like by written.
Why do we not hear from who? From the government or from
4,500 years, or maybe we have artifacts within North America that only go back like 10,000 years.
Well, no, they have. There's Indian, Native American sites in South America that go back 20,000 years. But
So, are we the latest? Are we the emphasis of the result of some kind of the latest seeding from other planets? Have you heard anything?
I can only say what Bob has said. That's my only source. He's talked a lot about it. He said the first humans on this planet were created about 1 million years ago by a genetic alteration between a spacefaring race and the apes, or and he said that race is no longer around. He said they so genetically altered their own makeup that they died out. He said, but since then there's been numerous other genetic interactions with various races in various times, various places. No one breeding system, but an overall attention to the planet, and perhaps maybe each race wants to experiment. He said the intent has been in the past largely scientific. I just want to say another thing is Basil asked them about evil ETs. Are there any bad ETs? And they said they wanted to say there's of all the races visiting, approximately 80% are here just to watch, just to observe, because they know there's something significant is happening. It's a big social transformation and the pole shift, so they're here to watch. So about 15% are here to help, to actively help prevent problems, to help interact if needed, etc. And then 5% are here for selfish reasons. But he said even that 5%, none of them are as bad. He said, Basil, none of these bad ETs are anywhere near as bad as your politicians.
That's a good joke, and
it's probably true.
Probably the archonic influence on politicians
absolutely.
explains their behavior.
That's where the influence is on the leaders, the capitalists.
I'm still confused as to what the objective of this this massive interbreeding thing.
We asked Baba back in the 90s about that, and this is what he said. He said around 1996 or 7 we asked him, and he said this group that's doing that does not have the permission of the other races to do that, and they were warned to stop. And he said they were warned that if they continued this breeding program past 2001, they would be forced to stop. And literally being shot down if they didn't stop. And I got a book called, has anybody read a book called Rachel's Eyes? It's about a woman, I can't remember where she lived, whether it was in Nevada. And she knew an Army colonel, captain, who said he had there was a girl who he wanted her to help put up and take care of her while she went through college. And she said, fine, okay, I'll do that, because she was single, I guess, at the time. And the girl's name, they called her Rachel, and she always wore sunglasses, and she always had wrap around her head, and always wear gloves. And she says, well, she's a little peculiar, but that's okay. And she used to go to school, and she'd come back and stay in her room most of the time. And I guess she had her own food. And this went on for, I guess, a semester or so, and then the Army captain took her away. But anyway, the Army captain eventually told her what was going on, that she was a hybrid. And the Army was doing an experiment to see if they could integrate her into society. And apparently the decision was it didn't work very well. Rachel had her own problems. I guess she was very depressed and feeling out of, like she didn't have any friends. Felt different, right? She felt different and couldn't relate to. She was too afraid to talk about who she was to the regular people, and they said it was this gray race, and I think there's many races that look like grays who are actually very good. Basil even met a gray race on his ship, and they said they were very nice. But it's just this particular group. It may not even be the whole racial group. It may just be one little group of this racial group.
I would like to bring up a point.
Let me just finish, and then so they finished that program, but the captain was telling this woman who took care of Rachel that they're having a great deal of difficulty because whenever these grays would take their ships off, they'd be shot out of the sky. That other races were attacking them. And this is since 2001. So, and then there was more information about that there apparently there is sort of like this war going on, and that this race is really being attacked by...
You mean the negative or the positive?
The negatives are being attacked and by positive races.
In my experience,
yeah,
as a clairvoyant, looking at people and seeing the clinical correlations, it's getting worse, not better.
The attack or
the infiltration of negative ETs in people's auras is becoming more common, and the
But do you think that's physical or psychic?
Psychic. Well, they're
It's inorganic.
And it's also astral.
Yeah, I think that's different. I'm talking about just the pure physical beings who are doing a physical,
I have no comment
genetic breeding program. I think that's what's being stopped. I'd say the psychic, that'll go on forever. I mean, I don't...
The astral intrusion.
Yeah, there'll always be that.
Yep.
Yeah. And we just have to make ourselves stronger spiritually. But.
I agree.
Well, did you say this is in cahoots with our military?
Yeah,
Things
absolutely.
like the reported underground bases.
I mean, there's, they say where there's smoke, there's fire. There's so many military people who have come out and talked about it. How can you not say it's happening? Yeah.
Well, sort of point of contention I have here is that trained as an anthropologist and archaeologist, and I taught physical anthropology for a long time.
Right.
And based on my research and studies is that interbreeding is not successful because it produces sterile populations. Because, for example, if you want to look at the interbreeding of, say, horses and donkeys, it produces sterile mules.
Right.
So we have to. I have to be somewhat critical of these interbreeding programs that are just resulting in sterile populations, unless ETs have developed the genetic technologies to get beyond that. But as it stands right now, we have to be very, very careful on the conclusions we reach regarding interbreeding success and the genetic manipulation that is going on, because it just produces sterile.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's that kind of genetic. I think they're far more advanced. That's the only thing I can conclude, is that they have the capability of mixing genes together and making it work.
So.
Well, with crops. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. But when it comes to hominids, such as ourselves, that's a different matter.
Yeah, for instance, this race that Basil met, there's something to be. You certainly have to bring up that point, because it is a race from another planet, and how could they possibly mix with us? And I think the only answer, and I've read this somewhere else, is that many of these races have all come from one root race, and so we have been interbred, created by a race that is part of this root race, and so we are genetically compatible to many of these races. And but I think the Greys this particular gray group, they seem different enough, so they must be using some other technique. I don't know. I'm not a geneticist.
If I may just
Yeah.
share, because I've been reading the Anastasia books.
Oh yeah,
and
me too. Yeah.
I'm almost at the end of number 4, and she brings this up.
Yeah.
They actually travel. Vladimir
Megrev.
Megrev, and they
Megrev?
travel to another planet, and her understanding is that they don't have emotion, and that's something they want.
They cut their emotions out. They bred it out of them.
There's no emotion, yeah. And so they're offering our government the solution of housing for everyone and a nutritional drink. You plug in and the machine, the computer says, oh, you need this today. So that they're offering a solution to the housing and nourishment problems, and then so supposedly we're trading for that. But there's some other really interesting things, and her vision is really that we can create a paradise on Earth or recreate it, and that's what we're here for. And so my sense is that those that are trying to control everything really see that it's gotten out of hand, and that they're afraid.
Yeah, they are.
So maybe they would go for something like that.
I think they would, yeah. But anyway, back to the pole shift. This technology that if it works, if I ever get it working, it cannot be released until after the pole shift, because that's when the attitude will change in society.
Will we be here after the pole shift?
Well, when
technology?
Ananda Murti in India first introduced the idea of pole shift, he said it'll happen in your lifetime. And he said 70% will not survive. But he said there's going to be 2 other disasters before the pole shift. He said one man-made and one natural, and he didn't say what they were. But and then the pole shift would be the last. Third one.
Well, I like to remember that a huge disaster and an awakening of human consciousness are not mutually exclusive. In fact, one may facilitate the other.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
When you said the pole shift was supposed to take place in a day, were you referring to the magnetic or the axis of rotation?
The axis of rotation.
Boy, that'll be an exciting day.
Yeah. There are some scientists who have been working on that, because they think that that's happened in the past, and they did all kinds of calculations. You know how they figured the wind speed along the axis of shift would be 350 miles an hour.
Are we supposed to get out and hug a tree or something?
I don't know. I've had numerous dreams of after the pole shift, and it's pretty scary looking. It's like there's nothing left. It's just trees are gone, houses are gone, like just foundations, and just grass is growing. You know. But that's when you have a lucid dream, it's just a potential future. It's not the real future. It may happen, it may not happen. And we're constantly changing, we're evolving, and if maybe we can evolve fast enough so that a lot of these disasters don't have to happen.
You were saying that they keep on building people or whatever for 3 days.
Yeah,
and
then put them all back down again.
then
With no place to live.
Probably put them in the proper place.
Yeah, whatever that is.
anything about like Mount Shasta, place ever.
Baba said that Mount Shasta is sort of like the recreational getaway place for the Pleiadians. And he said they have a facility underneath there, and they actually come there just because they said on this planet there's 2 very high vibration places where meditate is very, extremely good for meditation, and they like to. One of them is Mount Shasta, and the other one is, he says, Mount Kailasa in Tibet. Okay. Anyway, Kailash. Is that in Tibet or Nepal?
It's a pilgrimage mountain, Kailash.
Yeah, it's where Ganges River starts, right?
Yeah, it's sort of 18,000 foot to just
start
with.
Anyway, he said the Pleiadians come and meditate there.
Yeah, and pilgrims crawl around it on their belly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It has a beautiful energy, I think.
Yeah, well, I think.
That they live there like on the fifth dimension.
Yeah, that could happen too. You know,
Yeah, but if that
ultra dimension.
that would be a place
To go, yeah.
We're not too far away.
I know, that's part of Hey, any comments on the hollow earth theory?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you my own experience. Bob was never saying anything, but I had this interaction with a particular ET. He was like he's pretty neat looking. He was like 5'6", totally white skin. I mean, really, paper white skin. And the second time I saw him, he had a uniform. It was a silver uniform. It had like little black lines along his shoulders, and he had a big head. Very small ears, long, very thin nose, small mouth, and big.
Was that in your dream?
It was I was conscious. That's one of the subjects we really should talk about is what's actually happening when we're contacting these beings. I presume he had a physical body, and I was seeing his physical body, but was I seeing it with my physical body? And I'd say no. These beings are, they are very evolved psychically. They can project thoughts into you. I'll tell you another one in a minute. And they can project into you what they want you to see. I don't think he would have projected me seeing in uniform if he wasn't wearing a uniform. Why would he make up a uniform? No. So I presume he was letting me see the way he really looked. And, he just looked at me and he said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, the first thought that came to my mind was, "Yeah, what is all this about the hollow earth?"
About the what?
Hollow earth thing. And like instantly, the next thought, and I'm sure there was more stuff. I have these little fragments where I seem to remember fragments. I was getting off this ship. I was getting down this little ramp down into this sandy area. It was obviously an underground cavern, but it was huge. Really huge. It was a beach on the shore of a very large lake, and there was no waves in the lake. It was perfectly calm, there was no wind. And I saw these plants all around the beach. They're all succulents, and they are all every color but green. They were like reds and oranges, the leaves, and all very, thick succulent leaves. And I looked out over the water, and up over there was like a sun over the water, but I knew instantly it was an artificial light source. It wasn't like flickering like the sun. It was just solid like a light bulb. But it was lighting up, and the water was big enough so I couldn't see to the other side. And it was sort of like, you get all the answers all at once. And so I immediately knew that, no, there is no hollow earth. But what they have is there's these large caverns in the crust. And many of these races have these, or live in these, or have bases in them, and they're created, well, maybe they're partially natural, but certainly they're utilized by extraterrestrial races. And in fact, Basil's ETs went into depth about the center of the Earth, what it's like, and they called it the extra dense, because Basil's ETs also talked about microvita. They called them little intelligence, and they said that they come from the core of the Earth, where they call it star stuff. It's so dense that the normal molecular and atomic structure actually breaks down, and actually it operates like a superfluid, even though it's more dense than a solid. And they wanted to talk about the planet that became the asteroid belt. They said that that was a planet that exploded, and that what happened was they said all living planets have this super dense material in the middle, and this is what creates the microvita in huge numbers. And they travel out along the magnetic field lines, and then enter the crust from the field lines and then begin life and so on. But apparently the scientists were curious about this center of this planet, and this is what ET said. I don't know if this is true. They said they wanted to drill a hole down into the core of the planet. And other ET races said, it's a bad idea, don't do it. Because if this superfluid can at all find a channel out through the crust, it will explode the planet. The rapid decompression is so fast that the planet explodes. And as they said, there's a high potential that'll happen, don't do it. And they said, you're crazy, we're going to do it anyway. And they did it and the planet exploded. And Mars happened to be in its orbit right near them at the time, and it blew away half of Mars' atmosphere.
And crust.
And crust? Maybe crust.
According to Graham Hancock,
yeah,
that it looks like the whole, I don't know whether it's the northern or southern hemisphere,
blasted
3 kilometers of crust thickness.
That could be
missing.
What did this happen?
I don't know. Long time ago.
Have you ever read that book by Graham Hancock called The Mars Mystery? He says that this body crashed into the planet. And
he had a question.
Oh, I was just...
Oh, you're just stretching. Okay.
I did have a comment though. That reminds me of kind of like uranium, like the way that they use that, how it breaks down in a nuclear facility. It's like it heats up super rapidly, and then if it's too much, it can get way out of control.
Yeah. No, I don't think this is. I don't think this is I don't think the core of the Earth is self-generating heat. Maybe a little bit, but I think it's generally left over from when the Earth was a gaseous ball and condensed.
That's a common myth that's spread by mainstream science.
What about the gas ball?
About the center of the Earth.
The center of the Earth being what?
That it could not contain. I mean, this supposes this hollow Earth or this inner Earth scenario because there's probably some political game.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the liquid core of the Earth has been theorized for decades because of the seismic.
Right, the seismic waves, the different waveforms.
Has anybody ever given, on a totally different topic, has anybody ever given you any insight as to what the crop formations are all about?
Well,
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we asked Bob about that too, and he said that when ships come here from another dimension, he said now there's a problem. There's 2 things. There's dimensions and planes, and often Nietzsche mixes them up with planes. Planes are levels of vibration. Like the astral plane is a more subtle vibration than the physical plane. But there are also universes separated by time. In other words, they're a completely different timeline. And they're just as physical as this, but it's like another potential, I don't even know how to describe it. He said there are countless universes separated by time. And we can develop technology to go across these time barriers to these other universes. And I think it happens right now. I mean, look at has anybody read about the farm in Utah? Oh, you haven't read about
Is that the one?
We have to cross-pollinate more often.
Yeah.
What's the name of that farm?
It was it's the guy who's
Bridgewalker or something.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. George Knapp.
Right.
At the festival.
And that's an example of say at some points these dimensions are very thin and you can go. And Bob has said how the Bermuda Triangle is one of those places. And I think there's another place near the Sea of Japan.
What about the ranch?
Yeah, what
about the ranch?
Can you tell us about the ranch?
Well, scientists, this wealthy guy who runs, I think, SpaceX, I think it's one of the guys.
Yeah.
And he heard about it, bought it, hired a whole bunch of scientists to go there.
Right.
To do observations, and they had some pretty amazing observations. Right. One of the observations of one of them, they couldn't record it or anything, but that they saw, actually literally saw a window open in the sky, and where I think it was like nighttime or something. I can't remember the scene, nighttime, but in the window the sun was on the other. In other words, in the other dimension, there was a different time of day, and they saw beings coming through the window.
In the sky.
Oh, George Knapp conveyed all kinds of weird stories, like this oversized wolf just showed up and started eating the cattle, and they kept shooting
it was a dire wolf.
A dire wolf,
Right,
and then it wandered away, and then the tracks just stopped.
Right.
And then
And they actually, the farmer, before they took over the ranch, had shot at them and actually had seen pieces of flesh go off.
Yeah, he was talking about
but the wolf seemed to be unaffected
wouldn't-
by it.
wouldn't-
Very strange stuff.
Hunger Games.
I lost track of how did that relate back to the question about the crop formation?
Okay. So there's these inner dimensions, these other dimensions, and he said when one ship is here and they want to travel into another dimension, they said through this universe, psychic communication is very easy, and it's the preferred method because it's very quick and it goes over huge distances. But he said you cannot use psychic communication to go into across dimensional time barriers. So he said what they do is they have a very complex geometric language, and he said it's far too complex for us to understand, but the crop circles of that communication language, that they're communicating with each other and leaving like little messages for when the ship's coming and going. Huh?
They can't be telepathic.
Right.
So they're not even for us.
Well, I don't know. I've looked and I've seen there's two types of crop circles. There's the kind that are like really nice geometric formations, and then there's another kind where they like they'll have double lines, then a circle, and then half moons, and I perceive that to be the geometric language, and that the other ones are maybe for us, and then there's two things going on. That's what I think. That's my own.
Apparently they all measure out to their sacred geometry. They're all of them.
Could be, yeah.
And you were going to, I just want to remind you, at some point, you said you were going to tell us another story of your own personal.
Yeah, I will.
On the topic of crop circles, while we're on this, when Colin Andrews, we were lucky to see him speak at the UFO Festival here in McMinnville 3 years ago, he mentioned it toward the end, close encounter that a British policeman had with a series of 3 floating beings. He had this artist rendered a picture of. They were tall. They seemed to wear some kind of white skin suit or something. And when the British policeman came across them, I guess it was like in the early morning hours or something overnight. And when they saw that they engaged the policeman, they floated away. They kind of floated away up and over a hill and out of sight. Do you have any knowledge of any connection as to who is doing any kind of beings, or is this energy, or is it physical beings that are doing this?
Well, I think this is where it gets really hazy, and because I think, as Bob was saying, once you advance in your technology and you begin to be able to access the next plane up, the astral plane, all kinds of weird stuff can. It's a combination, and as your mind develops, Baba talked about very advanced races that don't use any technology because they're so mentally developed they don't need any technology.
Well, it's the highest form of energy.
Yeah.
This is a question that I've been wondering. It was really helpful for me when I got into the whole UFO ET thing to embrace this idea that there really is this hierarchy of consciousness and beings.
Yeah.
And so there are us lumbering baboons walking around here, and then there are these advanced beings with spaceships and biological bodies, and then there are advanced beings who don't even need bodies. Are there people in between these states? Are there
absolutely.
beings who have bodies only when they need them, but then their bodies will
My
vanish?
friend Paul, he was initiated by Brahmananda, and so he started doing the meditation, and one night he was woken up about 1 a.m. He lived by himself in Cape Cod, and he woke up and there was this very luminous man standing there. He had never seen a picture of Baba, Baba P.R. Sarkar with who were, bald, kind of short, with glasses. And I said, well, Paul, what did he look like? Oh, he's short and bald, and he had these big glasses. So I showed him a picture of him. That's him, that's him. Anyway, Bao just appeared, and he took him out of his body, and he said he was going to show them how societies evolved through the universe. And he took them on a 3-hour tour of all these different planets all over the universe. And he brought him to one planet where Paul said the beings were like quasi-physical. He said they seemed to have form, they seemed to have a body, but they were kind of shimmering, you kind of see through them. And he said Baba told him, this race is an extremely advanced race. Their spiritual vibration is so intense that if your physical body came here, it would die. It couldn't tolerate it. And he said, and it's only because I'm shielding you that I can show you these beings.
Well, Whitney Strieber suggested that one reason the ETs don't make open contact is that from a strictly a psychic level, we just wouldn't be able to.
We'd be overpowered. I mean, I have had experience. I've had experience with. This is back in the '90s. It was a group that I had contacted with a lot, and mostly I was too afraid. And every time I was afraid, they'd leave. Yeah. And it was all these funny experiences, but they would end up leaving. Eventually, I got up the courage to not freak out. And the reason I was freaking out was because their psychic energy was so powerful that I literally felt like I was a prisoner. Like they would come and look in my mind, and I felt like I was like they would, I felt like I couldn't escape. It was the flight or flight fear, and it kept coming up, and it wasn't because they were bad. It was just because they were so powerful, and I think they didn't maybe understand their own strength. And you're right. We don't have a concept of how powerful some of these beings are, and it would be very difficult for them to communicate with us without problems. Yeah.
What he was getting at, of course, is that essay which I actually just forwarded to my chiropractor last night, who was hoping he was going to show up with this. There's an intention for doing disclosure at an individual level. We are not, as a race, as a species, we are not prepared for the intensity. And as Strieber refers to it in his books, the download of information is massive.
Oh yeah.
And you're having some of these encounters. It's frightening.
Yeah, I've experienced the downloads, and it's pretty amazing how that works. Have you felt that?
I'll just share, when I first started channeling Archangel Michael, in about 15 minutes, I would just be out and I need a nap for like an hour. And for the first few months, I just couldn't be up in those frequencies, and then it started getting easier and easier. And I've definitely had dreams when I've been getting downloads, and I wake up and it's just like...
Does it ever open up for you? Have you ever had any of the downloads open up with all the information?
Getting there. Still working on it.
I experienced 3, and 2 of them opened up, and one is still hidden. I'm still waiting for that.
You mean having recognition of what happened?
Literally, it feels like a ball of information that just comes down and merges with your mind, and then it can open up into a whole bunch of information, like instant downloads. Huh?
A zip
file.
Yeah, it's like a zip file, exactly.
Well, I tried reading the book of Enoch.
Oh, I haven't read that.
That's one of those, and I could maybe get through a quarter of it before my brain just fizzled. I'm not ready for it yet, but I have it. I'll be ready for it someday.
But you brought up another point. It was one of our recent experiences, and this illustrates the real problem with understanding this whole interaction. Okay, this happened in November. It was about 2 years ago. My daughter lives over our garage with her daughter, and the main window faces south, and our house faces south because it's a solar house. And what I experienced was, all of a sudden I was out of my body, and I was standing in an upstairs room. It was like an art room looking out south window. And immediately I felt a presence. and I looked out the window, and I saw this little ship. It was like maybe 10 feet long, oval shaped. It was silver, lenticular, and it had a glass dome right in the middle. And I could see a beam in it. And immediately I felt the presence of the person. I knew it was a woman. I knew it wasn't a man. I could tell, the vibration. And I felt, she contacted me. She said, "May I ask you some questions?" And I said, "Of course." And so I started floating up through the ceiling and through the roof. And then all of a sudden, she wasn't in the ship, and she was just she and I looking at each other, maybe this distance away. And I could see, I could count every hair on her head, it's like that clear, that perception is that good. And she had this like white shirt. I could only see her from this high up. She had this white shirt on, and her hair was like, kind of going out in all directions. It was like silver white. But her face was all blurred out. She wouldn't let me see her face. So she was blocking her face, but she allowed me to see in detail. I can see in detail her shoulders and her hair and all that. And she proceeded to ask me about 10 questions. And while she's asking them, I'm thinking, these are really simple questions. I don't know why. She should know the answer to these things. Yeah. But as soon as she stopped answering questions, I couldn't remember any of them. And then that ended. The next morning, I talked to my daughter, and she said, "I saw something out the window last night." And she said, "I almost called you to wake you up, but I figured you wouldn't want to be woken up." And I said, "Well, what did you see?" And she said, "Well, it was around 1:30, same time I was having this experience. These two emerald green spheres were hovering over the trees just south of our house." And I said, "Well, what did they do?" And she said, "They didn't do anything. They just stayed there. I watched them for 20 minutes. They were just unmoving." And I said, "Well, did they go away?" And she said, "No, I just eventually got tired and I went to bed." So here we have this, what she saw physically and then what I experienced psychically. And I have to say there must have been some connection, but I didn't see what the connection was. So the only thing I can, the beings, my interpretation is the beings in these emerald ships had the psychic capacity to contact me on a psychic level. And her ship was probably a psychic projection. She probably created it in her mind to make me feel at ease, but yet she did have a physical existence, and that's what the physical ship was. So it makes a lot of people have these kind of experiences, and they're this combination of the psychic projection and the physical. And it makes it very hard to figure out what's going on.
Maybe one of the emerald balls was you and one was she.
I would like to have an emerald green ship. Yeah, I'd love to.
When you're hovering, maybe that's how it appeared to your daughter.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I have seen that emerald green ship once before. I was working my shop at night, and I just walked outside, and I looked up, and there it was. It was just hovering right there, and I looked at it for 2 seconds, and it blinked out, just gone.
Can I ask a different question?
Yeah.
So I heard that the reason the Russians and the Americans stopped sending ourselves to the moon was because there was something interesting going on there, and there was some big summit where whoever they are, they basically said stop or else. And I'm from Russia, so I'm interested. So a lot of the Russian leaders at the very top were very freaked out and completely stopped what they're doing. And now I'm hearing that NASA's planning something to go to the moon again. What's going on the moon? What do you know about the moon?
I don't know. I only know what you've read. The same thing. I've never asked Bob about it. Basil's ETs. We didn't ask them about it. We didn't. And I don't have any information.
There was something in some of EU7, I believe I found, where Bob had said that underneath the dust of the moon, it is solid gold.
Yeah,
it is proper density to do what it does to the Earth.
Yeah.
And so that could be, if that got out and that was found to be real, that could be very problematic.
Yeah.
That would explain a lot about like the magnetic nature of the moon and how it affects the tides.
On a related note, though, we're on the topic of the moon. Jim Mars, in his book Alien Agenda, pointed out that seismic readings they've taken from the moon would indicate that the thing is hollow. And there was some further elucidation that he put together in this section of the book that the thing may indeed be some kind of a massive, I'm interjecting, consciousness-created satellite that was moved there from some other location. Because when they've done seismic work, either I think from the Apollo moonshots on, they've gotten this reverberation when they've like dropped something on the Earth, like when they dropped one of the lunar modules back to Earth to the moon. The seismic readings indicated a very long signal, a very extendedly time-wise signal, which indicated it was bouncing back within a hollow core.
It would essentially ring like a bell.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. Well, one thing I am concerned about is we had one of our GEMI meetings. Richard Dolan came and talked to us, and he was talking to us about his idea of the breakaway civilization. Have you heard about that? Where the secret military has gotten so advanced in their technology that they no longer think that that technology can be integrated in society, and that they actually may just leave.
They may leave the planet?
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but
maybe it would explain why it seems that they're prepared to just sit back and let the whole entirety of civilization collapse.
Yeah, I've thought that.
That's intuitively right to me, that there's a group that think they've got the cat in the bag and they're
right,
out there.
Exactly. And I don't know.
I would pick up his latest book. I'm reading it, still reading it. It's After Disclosure. The man's really brilliant. He goes all these different tangents.
We had most of the people in GEMI accept the psychic aspects of the UFO encounter, and he doesn't. And he's very materialist. But he's open to the possibility, but he's kind of like, prove it to me.
He wants to see evidence.
Yeah.
Richard Dolan.
David Sirota, who's a friend of a friend, he writes for the Nation of Change, but he made a video that was so long, but it was a clip from the astronauts, 2 of them, and then one sees things flying, and one of the astronauts says to the other, "Did you see that?" And the other one says, "We're being filmed right now. This, we don't talk about this." But so he reverses the tape and plays it again and again and again, and he's quite brilliant mathematically, and he explains his theory for the movement, fossil fuel free movement of the spaceships, and then how it propels itself, and then there's the Dogon in Africa, I believe, have a stone that's the same shape, and so anyway, it's a very, but it was interesting. It's a very long.
That came out a few years ago, right? I think that's been up in the.
Yeah. What's our schedule?
It's about 12.
The Babatov is at noon.
Oh, it is.
Love, mysticism, and future humanity or something.
Wow.
Like that.
Okay.
Well, he and I are taking off after lunch.
After lunch, so maybe go back to Babatalk.
Just never see them, And so I'm wondering if not only are there these dark, sinister forces on Earth with, people in suits who are suppressing this, but if the ETs themselves are not working to suppress this technology from coming out.
They are, it depends on the group. And like I say, Basil's group were willing to give some of this technology. Other groups may not. One word we have to get rid of is they. What do they want? There is no they. There's hundreds of them, and it's like asking, do the people of New York like to eat bread? I mean, I don't know. And there's a lot of people. They do, yeah. Okay, they do. Yes.
That's easy.
Especially down that bakery down in Greenwich Village. even on a ship, there's different. Every individual person may have their own intention, a little bit different than that. So I will tell you that one of the reasons I got hooked up with Maitreya is that the ETs wanted to give us technology for free energy through Basil. And a friend of mine, Paul, who had his own experience with an ET group, worked with me, and he was friends with Bud Hopkins, who lived. But Paul lived in Orleans, Cape Cod, and Bud Hopkins lived right nearby. And so Paul had his experience. He had gone through therapy, hypnosis regression with Bud Hopkins, and had remembered. I'll say he probably doesn't want his name, so I'll just say Paul. He lives on Hawaii right now. Anyway, we worked together. We worked with this technology, but Basil had such limited scientific knowledge and intellectual concepts that we really couldn't communicate enough to get what we needed. But they gave the theory of it, and then I went when Maitreya started having her interactions with Baba. I asked to do that, and he gave the whole technology the exact same theory that Basil was given. And I haven't heard this anywhere else. Not online. It's not. Nowhere else have I heard this. This is a technology that's completely different than anything anybody you hear online. So I figured that's an incredible validation of the information that comes through Maitreya. But I'm still working on it. I don't have enough time. I either work and have money and no time, or I don't work and I don't have money but I have a lot of time. So I'm fighting. This is a big subject in my life right now. At one point do I quit work and just put all my energy into working on this device? And the information from Baba was this device cannot be released right now. Even if I'm successful, it has to be kept secret because of its potential as to be used as a weapon. Huh? Yeah.
When you finish.
Yeah. Let me just finish. And that's the problem with a lot of these technologies is they have a good side and they can be used in a bad way. I mean, you probably know. Have you ever heard of Stephen Mayer? He developed a method of using water and engine to run an engine.
His name is. It's not Stephen Mayer.
Oh,
you guys
not
speak
Stephen.
up a little, please?
It's not Stephen Mayer.
Maybe it's not Stephen. Maybe what's his first name?
No.
In Ohio.
He was in. Wasn't he in the South?
No. He was in Columbus, Ohio.
He developed a water car.
A water car, yeah.
Yeah, and he was having lunch with the U.S. Navy, and he.
No, well, he had. The story is he had developed the car, developed the technology. It was working. Stanley Meyer. Yeah, you're right, Stanley.
Yeah. Stanley. You just brought him up the other day.
Yeah, Stanley. Right. He invited the Pentagon to come see his work, which was a bad idea. And they came and he showed them his devices in his car. That evening, he was having a family celebratory dinner because he had been given $50 million and a piece of property to develop a research center. They were going to do the groundbreaking the next day.
Who did you get the money from?
I don't know. It was from some wealthy investors. But anyway, and during the dinner, all of a sudden he stood up, grabbed his stomach, and said, "I've been poisoned." He ran outside and fell on the ground dead.
He was diagnosed with an aneurysm.
Right. I was out in Ohio and I went to the local library and I looked up the coroner's report and it said cerebral hemorrhage.
And he grabbed his stomach.
He grabbed his stomach. And one of our people here is a neurologist, and I asked him, if somebody has a cerebral hemorrhage, do they grab their stomach? He says, no, they never grab their stomach. So it was obviously a cover-up. What?
I have a little story around the water engine where I had a friend of mine, the Morse family owned a large construction construction company called Morse Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember the orange and white?
Yeah.
Well, about 15 years ago, they were going to put water-based engines in all their vehicles. It was going to cost $2,000 per vehicle to
change over.
And the Morse Brothers was ready to do all this, contract was signed, and all of a sudden the rug got pulled under. The oil companies had bought the patents.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stories like that. I don't think the water technology is necessarily dangerous. I don't think that you could make dangerous weapons. I think that's just a matter of the oil companies suppressing, and they control the military. But the device that I am working on does have some pretty dangerous implications.
What are the dangerous implications?
Free energy.
Well, yeah, but it can be used to create some very destructive energy beams that can, what do you call it? Vaporize, just dissociate matter, and all kinds of weird stuff. And so anyway, the one subject which the ETs told Basil, this is one thing they told them, that another reason that they're here, and perhaps a major reason, is because of the coming pole shift. Has anybody heard about that?
I heard it's already happening.
I'll tell you that in a minute. I'll tell you.
Coming what?
Pole shift.
Pole shift.
And
we were talking about it this morning.
Yeah, and so they told, huh?
Yeah, it's happening.
They told Basil that they don't know if they were going to be needed, but that they have computers and they're monitoring the thought patterns of every human on the planet. And they have selected out those thought patterns which are conducive to a progressive society versus those which are destructive. And if it appears that the pole shift will be very damaging, very dangerous, they will send down their scout craft run by the computers and pick up those people who they think will be, or they want to save. And they said they have enough food and space to hold 1 million people for 3 days on their ship. So that's what they can do. And they said there's a lot of other ships coming, and they're all like waiting out there. They shift their frequency so we can't see them, but they're all waiting out there. I guess there's a lot of them, all watching right now.
And the pole shift would be physical pole shift?
Physical and magnetic. And P.R. Sarkar wrote a whole article about it back in 1985 or so, and he talks about the coming pole shift. And he said that it would start, there'll be a magnetic pole shift, and then about 2 years later there'll be a geophysical pole shift.
Meaning like the crust would actually shift.
He didn't say how it would actually happen, whether the crust would shift around the mantle or whether maybe the planet would begin to wobble and it would assume a new axis.
And volcanologically, it would alter things. Yeah. The plates would move farther right.
I'm sure maybe all of the above would happen. And then through my trade, Bob talked about it too. He gave more details. He told where the new poles are going to be. He said the new South Pole will be in between the northern island of Japan and Kamchatka, somewhere around there. And the new North Pole will be off the coast of Argentina. So Argentina will be in the Arctic, as well as a lot of Brazil. Moscow will have the exact same climate as it has now. Oh, no. They won't change at all. We will be near the equator here, so.
Oh, we will be growing bananas then, Rob.
Oh, good.
We talked about that at breakfast.
And he also said the whole pole shift will happen in less than a day.
Really?
It'll be very quick.
Well, what about the electric field? I would hear that it was going to be interrupted, but you're saying it's a very short period of time?
Yeah, the magnetic field will shift first, and then the geophysical. Yeah.
I got some information the day before yesterday from a reliable source, an engineer friend of mine. He said that the magnetic north is shifting.
I'll just tell you.
But the south is staying the same.
Well, I'll tell you. Yeah.
Can I just share what I heard?
I'm sorry.
And maybe you know something different, and maybe I didn't understand it totally. But he said that the magnetic north was already in Siberia.
Really?
I think that's 34 miles away, and then it's been shifting since then, a mile a day, and then now 10 miles a day.
Wow.
So I heard this the day before yesterday, and then I asked somebody who kind of is very scientific, and he said, "Oh yeah."